Before I introduce our final keynote speaker, we'd like to show you the final clip from Nature is Speaking campaign being unveiled by Conservation International here at South by Southwest Eco. Introducing the rainforest.
I am the rainforest. I watched them grow up here. They've left, but they always come back. Yes, they always come back. For my trees, their wood, my plants, their medicines. For my beauty, their escape. I've always been there for them, and I have been more than generous. Sometimes I gave it all to them. Now, gone forever. But humans, they're so smart, so smart. Such big brains and opposable thumbs. They know how to make things, amazing things. Now, why would they need an old forest like me anymore? Jungles? Trees? Well, they do breathe air, and I make air. Have they thought about that? Humans, so smart. They'll figure it out. Humans making air. That'll be fun to watch.
To hear more about this campaign, be sure to check out Nature's Speaking How to Market the Environment session at 3:30 today, right here in meeting room 19B down the hall. From its founding in 1977, the mission of the Energy Department has been to ensure America's security and prosperity by addressing its energy, environmental, and nuclear challenges through transformative science and technology solutions. There's so much exciting things happening today in energy. Just 2 weeks ago, the Obama administration unveiled a slew of actions aimed at improving energy efficiency and increasing the use of solar power in homes and businesses, including $68 million in spending. The White House said the actions would reduce carbon dioxide emissions by nearly 300 million metric tons by 2030, the equivalent of 60 million car emissions a year. They will also save $10 billion in energy costs. Where's the United States going, and how do we get there? Fortunately for us, we have a brilliant nuclear physicist with us here today to help answer these questions. He previously served as the Associate Director for Science in the Office of Science and Technology Policy in the Executive Office of the President of the United States from 1995 to 1997, and in the United States Department of Energy, serving as Undersecretary of the Energy from 1997 to 2001 during the Clinton administration. He's one of the founding members of the Cypress Institute and the Cecil and Ida Green Professor of Physics and Engineering Systems, the Director of the Energy Initiative, and Director of the Laboratory for Energy and the Environment at MIT. It is my honor to present to you the Secretary of Energy of the United States of America, Dr. Ernest Moniz.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Well, thank you, Scott. It is good to be out of Washington, actually, and here with entrepreneurs and visionaries. As mentioned, I spent actually 40 years at MIT, and so it's an environment that I do miss, and it's great to be back among those who are really thinking about how to lead us to a clean energy future. Actually, that little film I just saw was, I hope that's right, that we will figure it out, and figure it out soon. Climate change obviously does pose a major challenge to our economy, our global security, and the ecosystems that we too often take for granted. So today, I'd like to just share a few thoughts. First, a few words on the climate challenge and the approach that we are taking at kind of a kind of a high level, but then second, turn to some of the areas that we believe give us and can give us an increasing competitive edge. Energy, what's happening with energy in the country, innovation, of course, and productivity. And I'll mention some of the specific programs that the Department of Energy is doing to advance research, development, demonstration, and deployment across the innovation chain. So the key message is, of course, and again, I think everyone knows here, that when it comes to the challenge of climate change, and the President has said it very, very directly, we really don't have time to waste as to our addressing the need to mitigate climate change, and as I will come to, unfortunately, to also address the issues of adaptation to the kinds of change that we are already seeing and are very, very likely to see more of. So last summer, the President put out his climate action plan. Certainly our view, our approach is that the issue is basically settled as to whether or not we need to address climate change, certainly within any sensible approach to prudent governance. We will continue to make progress, to refine our understanding on the science, but that should not be something that prevents us from moving forward with as much urgency as possible to address the issues now. Clearly, we will, as science progresses, learn more about specific regional impacts, maybe learn more about how we specifically shape our program. But again, we are very committed to doing all that we can today. The President, in putting out the plan, made it clear that working with Congress on a comprehensive legislative approach and an economy-wide approach would be preferable. But in the spirit of not having time to waste, we are moving forward with a pretty broad program based upon authorities that we already have. As I mentioned, besides the mitigation approach, basically moving to clean energy, there are other issues, land use, et cetera, but preeminently moving to a clean energy future to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We do at the same time need to address adaptation, and in fact this summer, about a year after the Climate Action Plan, the administration, we put out the third National Climate Assessment. Hundreds of scientists across the country engaged for many years, of course quite consistent with the whole international science community, the IPCC, and that document really put out for the first time from the administration in great detail the impacts that we are seeing in our country and those that are likely to come with some degree of regional disaggregation. It's compelling, but unfortunately not comforting reading. Again, from Alaska, Mountain West, Florida, Mid-Atlantic coast, rising sea levels, extended fire seasons, expanded range for insects that are attacking our western forests. We could go on, recognizing always that no one individual phenomenon can we kind of uniquely ascribe to global warming and climate change, but a pattern that was expected decades ago, that is playing out more or less as anticipated, and with global warming certainly being a powerful amplifier in terms of extreme weather and other kinds of impacts. Many strong voices from different communities are reinforcing the message. Former Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson and former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, for example, who led a report called Risky Business, talked about the kinds of damages that we can expect, particularly in their case in coastal regions, from climate impact. Also strong voices from our military community, strong voices from our religious community, all coming together. There is perhaps one community not fully there. I will leave you to connect the dots as to who that is. But in the meantime, I think a growing consensus and a growing coalition that we really need to take strong actions now. As you well know, there's a lot of common sense actions that we can take now to reduce our carbon emissions, giving us time, more time to adapt and to develop the innovative low carbon technologies of the future, and that's the driving force again behind the President's playbook in the climate action plan. So if we just take some of the examples where we are moving forward with existing authorities, power plants clearly are the single largest concentrated sources of carbon emissions in the United States. And in June, the EPA, I'm sure well known, issued the first draft standards to cut carbon emissions from existing plants by the order of 30%. In the transportation sector, a few years back, the President put in place the toughest fuel economy standards, the CAFE standards, requiring 54.5 miles per gallon by 2025 for passenger vehicles, and also finalized rules, the first rules for commercial trucks. At the Department of Energy, along this line of kind of existing efforts, one of the areas that we've been pretty hard at work at is on establishing new efficiency standards that do come under DOE authority, and we have issued final efficiency standards for more than 30 household and commercial appliances, dishwashers, refrigerators, water heaters, as well as things like electric motors used widely in industry, used for escalators, you name it. And right now, we are on track this year to issue 10 new standards, which would be a twofold acceleration in half the time in terms of issuing these rules. Sometimes these rules, when you look at them one by one, don't seem to have tremendous transformational impact. But in fact, when we look at the rules so far issued in this administration and those that we have on schedule for the remaining 2.5 years of the administration, taken together, the projection is 3 gigatons of CO2 avoidance and nearly $500 billion of energy costs to be avoided cumulatively up to 2030. So those really add up into very substantial numbers. And in all of these cases, these are regulations and standards, whether it's power plants, transportation, appliances, electronics, et cetera, that clearly promote and need technology innovation so that they can be met in economic fashion, whether it's carbon capture and sequestration for coal plants or new materials for vehicle lightweighting, advanced lighting, and much more. Secondly, in pursuing this low-carbon future and underpinning our portfolio of investments in technology innovation, the President is committed to, I am committed to, what's called the all-of-the-above approach. It starts with lowering carbon emissions, but it addresses the potential for those lowered carbon emissions across all of our fuel sources, essentially across all of our technologies. As one example, a year ago, as an example of how this progress is going on, partly through DOE investments, mostly through the innovation of people in this audience and elsewhere, we put out a report just about a year ago called Revolution Now, some dots in between the revolution and the now. This took a selection of 4 clean energy technologies that are coming into the marketplace at a brisk pace, still do not have the dominant market share, but are being driven by dramatically lowering costs from both innovation and scale, and in fact are growing dramatically. So those four that were singled out for examination were onshore wind, photovoltaic modules, LED lighting, and electric vehicle batteries. And their recent progress, if you see the deployment numbers and the falling cost numbers, really illustrate the kind of historic shift to a clean energy future that we are seeing around us if we pay attention, and people here, I think, do pay attention, but also the need, if we are to sustain and indeed accelerate our meeting of the kinds of mitigation goals that we need. Today, probably a lot of you are on the internet. Today, we are releasing or have released an update of that Revolution Now report on our energy.gov website. So it takes a look 1 year later, and it's really interesting, again, in this 1 year, the amount of progress that has been made across these. I think we frankly don't highlight enough the rapidity with which these changes are taking place. On the wind side, it's accounted for about 30% of new generation nationwide in the last years. We're up somewhere between 60, 65 gigawatts displayed, maybe 4.5% of the kilowatt hours in the country coming from wind. The increased deployment has come, and falling costs have been driven by advances in wind turbines, larger wind turbines, higher hub heights, capturing more resources more efficiently, and economics of scale as this deployment goes up. And now, with any reasonable kind of financing assumptions, even though it's an imperfect measure, things like levelized costs certainly down in the 6-7 cents per kilowatt hour, and even better in some situations. Photovoltaic solar panels, another where actually the price, the cost has fallen even faster. In 6 years, an 80% reduction in PV module costs, below $1 a watt. For utility scale projects, all in, less than $2 a watt. And if you compare that to the wind, you can see where maybe it's 50% higher in terms of levelized cost today with similar financing assumptions. That's getting into very, very reasonable range, and again, still falling. LED lights. Just a few years ago, viewed as a niche product, way too expensive, et cetera, even if the life cycle calculation said that you were going to be in the money. It just wasn't really clicking, in my view. Today, I think the word LED lighting is just used, it rolls off the tongue. It's kind of a normal way of doing business. In fact, just before coming here, I visited one of the campuses of the Austin Community College and saw their sustainability programs. And one of the things they pointed out is, with no coaching, is that in addition to the cost reduction, which has gotten us down to the order of a year payback period, that they saw the collateral benefits that came. You're in an institutional setting, a lot of the lights are pretty high up. Changing them is expensive. It costs more than the lights to get the ladder, get everything else, maybe bring in people, and so that's not even counted in the cost performance calculation based upon energy use. A second thing is, at DOE, we've worked with several cities, Detroit, for example, and others, in terms of LED outdoor lighting. What we don't hear, we do hear the budget savings to the municipal budget, and that's great, but we don't hear so much how the police departments are advocating for this as a public safety benefit because of the quality of the light. So it's really a huge story, and in less than 3 years, the deployment of LEDs in this country, up to about 40 million, has gone up by a factor of 100. And these are the kinds of transformations, obviously, that we need, and they're all based upon innovation. In fact, it was good, was it yesterday, wasn't it? I lose track of the days. Yesterday, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded for discovery of essentially a blue LED that then allowed one to get into white light. And it's a story that I like because even in the award, it was noted that part of this, it was not just the technology, the science of technology per se, but it was that it's a technology that impacts people in their everyday lives. And of course, LEDs not only are impacting what we do here at home and at work, et cetera, in the United States, but also if you look at what's happening in off-grid rural communities in the world, LEDs are critical because they lower the need for electricity supply. And they literally change people's lives by having light. Kids can do homework, all kinds of issues. So it's really a huge issue. In fact, it reminds me of the 2000 announcement of the National Academy of Engineering that surprised a lot of people when they named electrification as the most significant engineering achievement of the 20th century. You know, people expected computers, lasers, you name it. But the point was that's an innovation in the energy space that affects the quality of life of just about everybody. And I think in some sense that's, I think for the innovators, it's important to think about when you're innovating in this space, it goes beyond the technology itself in terms of what can be very, very important for people's everyday lives, even as we address this important climate challenge. The fourth area in revolution now, electric vehicles. Another remarkable story. The battery costs have come down 3x in 5 years. They still got another 2x, at least I would say, to go for penetrating a broader market. But you know, again, we should really not lose sight of what is happening as we push this technology innovation forward. You know, Chevy Volt, actually the Nissan Leaf, Tesla Model S are kind of just here in the United States, kind of leading the way. And you know, we had a 30% growth last year to just about 100,000 electric vehicles sold in the United States. With a continued if it's a 30% per year growth, which is not unreasonable, particularly as we project the battery costs continue to go down, more lightweighting, et cetera, that if we go on that path, we will hit 1 million at the end of 2017. And you know, that's getting to be, again, an appreciable impact in the marketplace. Not to mention, as you know, I won't go through it all again because it's told so many times, but not to mention the great performance that one has with these vehicles. So in short, it was really interesting for us to take, again, a 1-year look back and see what's happened in 1 year. And it's in my view, it's pretty breathtaking, really. And of course, these are also producing the kinds of jobs in the United States, whether it's in the research end or the manufacturing end, that are really important. The solar industry alone is now up to directly supporting about 150,000 jobs in this country. So that's the kind of on the renewables and efficiency side with LEDs. But of course, all of the above really does mean all of the above. And so we also continue and make very substantial investments on the fossil fuel side, but again, with the idea that we are going to improve the economy and lower emissions. So I already mentioned on coal, for example, that entails largely carbon capture and sequestration here in Texas. Several of the projects that we are supporting typically using the carbon dioxide for enhanced oil recovery here in Texas. Again, cost reduction, very, very critical there. On oil, well, here in Texas, of course, the Eagle Ford is a huge story, but we have the Bakken in North Dakota. We are producing a lot more oil. How is that consistent with what I just said earlier? Well, first of all, we should remember that the fact is that we are still major oil importers. And what's really been happening is that we have cut imports down dramatically and our imbalance of payments. The president 2 years ago said we want to cut oil imports in half by 2020. We did that this year. 2 years into the 8 years, it was done. The huge impact on balance of payments, more resources that can go into other productive activities in the United States. However, what I want to emphasize is that this has in no way deflected us from decreasing our oil dependence. So we are making huge investments with our auto companies for the technologies that we will need to meet that 54.5 mile per gallon standard in 2025. We continue to invest in the alternative fuels. I think it's next week or 1 or 2 weeks from now, be dedicating a very interesting biorefinery using completely cellulosic and waste feedstock. We continue, as we've already said, to invest heavily in the technologies and in the infrastructure for electric vehicles. So again, as we have this bounty of more oil, it's really being used in effect to reduce our imports, reduce our external payments, while we push hard on lowering our oil dependence. And in fact, demand, the lack of increase in demand has in fact caused, as we all know, some strains in terms of the balance with biofuels, et cetera. But these are the kinds of, in some sense, good problems that we need to have as we push in all these technology directions and lower our dependence. Gas, another issue, clearly, where certainly in this country there's no question that the much lower cost relative to other large advanced economies has given a substantial competitive edge. I'll return to that a bit later, but also has directly led to a reduction of CO2, and it's not easy, but we remain committed to the trajectory of the 17% reduction in CO2 by 2020 that the president committed to back in Copenhagen. So that's kind of the picture on the energy scene and how we are moving that forward. Let me turn to innovation. Again, very much the subject of this conference and an area that is clearly essential for us to meet our economic security and environmental goals. So the department really works, I'm going to say a little bit about the department now, works across the entire innovation chain in terms of basic research. For example, as you know, many of you know, we have 17 national laboratories, and one of the major features there is the work on large facilities that could not be afforded or placed pretty much anywhere else. And we have almost 30,000 scientists and engineers across the country using those facilities, like light sources, for example, each year. A huge focus is advanced materials. So it cuts across the board. And another focus, 30% of the use is now in the life sciences. So advancing pharmaceuticals and all kinds of other issues. So that certainly is one of the major areas where we try to provide the underpinnings for technology innovation in this country. Of course, we also have our applied energy programs looking more directly at technological breakthroughs. And for example, our Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewables invests more than $1.7 billion annually for applied research across multiple technologies, as well as convening industry, sharing best practices, and setting energy standards, as I alluded to earlier. Our ARPA-E program takes an even more direct approach towards the commercialization side, in the sense that they work with awardees to pair each project with a tech-to-market advisor. And as awardees have to meet technical milestones, they also create tech-to-market milestones to aid in a smooth commercialization process. Since ARPA-E started in 2009, there's certainly been a number of very, very interesting developments. Zinc-air batteries for grid-scale energy storage, new software for power flow on grids, hardware devices as well. All of those already resulting in commercial products, and others that are exciting and hopefully will be in the marketplace shortly, like a megawatt silicon carbide transistor the size of a fingernail. Much, much more, and I think very soon this afternoon, Cheryl Martin, the director of ARPA-E, will be regaling you with pictures, probably of the technologies, but we'll see. So in a few short years, really, ARPA-E projects have really moved forward with some of these commercializations. And in fact, 22 projects have attracted over $600 million in private sector follow-on funding of less than $100 million, following on to less than $100 million. Another area in manufacturing, and manufacturing, at least I associate very strongly with innovation. One only needs to repeat that roughly 2/3 of our private sector R&D comes from the manufacturing sector. The predominance of patents comes from the manufacturing sector. Making stuff drives innovation. So among other things, along this innovation spectrum, we are supporting national manufacturing institutes. It's sort of places to bridge applied research to product development, teaching factories involving consortia, typically of business, universities, other partners. Particularly important, we think, for supporting smaller manufacturing operations with access to tools that they would not otherwise have. And of course, deployment. Going to the deployment end of the spectrum, we have a variety of mechanisms to encourage that for technologies that are pushing the envelope on technology, but of course are also marketable at commercial scale. The most prominent of these is our Loan Program Office. I suspect many have heard about that office in the past. I want to just say that this program, which has deployed over $30 billion in loan guarantee with approximately a 2% loss rate, has been a terrific success. From very large wind farms to large solar generation, PV, utility PV, thermal storage, solar with thermal storage plants, first new Generation 3+ reactors in the United States ever, and the first new ones in a long time, and more than a dozen new and retooled auto manufacturing plants, driven by, again, especially that efficiency agenda that I mentioned earlier. So one example is the utility scale solar, where the program has, pretty much jump-started an entire industry. Back in 2009, there were no utility scale PV plants in the country, being defined as 100 megawatts or greater. There was also no debt financing in the country. The loan program supported the first 5 utility-scale PV projects, all successful, and today there are 17 additional plants operating or under construction with completely private financing. So that's the kind of thing that we want to do with this program, help the initial deployment, but then have the marketplace take over. And this is a case where, you know, the marketplace is really acting quite strongly. So hopefully we will replicate this in other areas. But what I really want to say is, I mean, we've got 30+ billion in play, and that's great. But we have 40+ billion of remaining authority. And it is also all of the above. We have approximately 4 billion left in renewables and efficiency, approximately 8 billion for fossil fuel technologies that lower emissions, around 13 billion more for nuclear, and about 17 billion more for advanced technology vehicles. Our goal, and the President's goal and directive, is to put that all in play in the next 2.5 years. So the message is, if there's any confusion, we are open for business, and we are looking to have a major push again in these next couple of years to help deploy these advanced technologies. And I gotta say, it's fun to go and see what previous investments have done. 2 in the vehicle program with Ford, for example, we gave a $6.5 billion loan, retooled 10 factories in 6 states for high efficiency, and then we could go to the Dearborn test track and see what a aluminum-bodied F-150 is like. This is the model for 15 and beyond, 700 pounds taken out just by that one innovation. And of course, Tesla, where we gave a $500 million loan, has really taken off. Clearly, they are exporting, they are building new gigafactories, great car, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to do more of that, but probably broadening the program. So for example, on vehicles, we think the next wave of loans will probably focus more on the supply chain to provide the kinds of new parts, components that the advanced vehicles will need. And we will probably go more towards co-lending with the private sector, not only because we want to stretch the funds out to more projects. 40 billion isn't a bad place to start, after all, without stretching it out further. But the reason is we think it's important now to get more and more of the financial institutions in the game of these clean energy finance projects. That's one thing we've done now with our first conditional commitment, at least, to offshore wind, for example, where we do not have investor experience in this country. We want to help establish that through this program. So it's pretty exciting. Let me end by turning to a few words on manufacturing. As I said, in manufacturing, I at least, and the President is very strong on building our manufacturing, rebuilding our manufacturing base, but rebuilding it in things like the clean energy space, for example. And again, as I said earlier, 2/3 of private R&D is in this space, so it is a major driver of innovation and of good jobs. In fact, on the job front, you probably have read that we are now in our 55th consecutive month of private sector job growth. This is a record since such things were recorded. 10.3 million private sector jobs over that time period. 700,000 plus of those in manufacturing. And in terms of, by the way, the job side, I should say, the statistics are that for comparable workers, a manufacturing job has 22% higher pay, and for entry-level workers, 38% higher pay. I mean, this is really about, the ladders of opportunity that we need more of in this country, manufacturing the products of innovation in new technologies. I'll just say that last Friday was National Manufacturing Day, and if I just give as an example the visit that I made on Friday to a Corning plant near Elmira, New York, really a whole bunch of things come together. In terms of innovation, I mean, this is a company, by the way, which started making the glass for Thomas Edison's bulbs. So it goes back a ways. But it's a company that fundamentally made a transition from what you'd call a glass company to a materials company. Some of those materials may be glass, like for cell phones, et cetera, but it is an advanced materials company. The expanding public-private labor partnership. We were able to give a $30 million tax credit, 48C tax credit. State chipped in, company obviously invested. So a plant manufacturing advanced ceramic filters for cleaning up heavy truck exhaust. They're expanding. There'll be 250 new manufacturing jobs in that expansion, plus the construction jobs. Working the international vice president of the steelworkers was there. A tremendous partnership, again, public-private labor, focusing on producing the products of innovation. I mean, these filters are very high tech in terms of the specs they have to meet to address the environmental challenges, including climate challenges, by reducing black carbon emissions. The energy comes into the story as well. You walk in on that manufacturing floor, but by the way, and you see, of course, in this case, the steel workers and very advanced robotics, of course, all combined in this plant. But then you see row after row of huge kilns burning natural gas. That low gas price comes into, that's another of the competitive edges and why that facility is here in the United States. And then you go down the road a couple miles and you see an actual, honest-to-God, corporate R&D laboratory with 1,700 scientists working on advanced materials for the next thing. And some of them are in common, the same core kinds of technologies for that heavy truck exhaust. They're also looking at things in like CO2 control. So it's really, there are a lot more stories like that around the country. And it's sort of like in the Revolution Now story. We need to look up a little bit and see the kinds of things that are happening on the ground with energy and innovation and productivity all coming together in a very, very interesting way. We do other things with manufacturing, like a Better Plants Challenge, which is a good case of principally using our convening power. About 11% of the country's manufacturing footprint is involved. It's a challenge with shared information about achieving 20% energy reductions in a decade. The portfolio is averaging 2.4% per year, so even ahead of track. So another competitive edge by working on the energy efficiency side. And finally, training, another one of our focus areas. We really need to produce the workers that we're going to need, whether it's technicians in a research context or modern manufacturing workers. Again, that was actually the motivation of stopping on the way here to at the Austin Community College to see this in action. But I'll give you another example with one of our laboratories in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. We have a substantial 3D printing RD&D facility there. In a wonderful story that I won't have time to tell, but ultimately motivated by one of our returning badly injured veterans, lost his legs to an improvised explosive device. Through that, led to developing with a local community college, a certificate program to become 3D printers. And this has tremendous opportunities, obviously, as manufacturing grows. And so, again, we are trying to take this whole picture together around innovation, R&D technology, manufacturing, the human resource base that we will need to take your innovations to scale and in the market. So in ending, maybe I'll just go back to the story about the LED Nobel Prize and the National Academy of Engineering declaration of electrification as the 20th century's major engineering achievement. I'm hoping in the 21st century achievement will be in this area, clean energy. I know health, life sciences and health will be a strong competitor, and that's fine. But in both cases, whether it is this clean energy revolution or the health science advances, I say to the innovators, they will be singled out because of the way they affect everybody's life. So I think it's a tremendous area in which to innovate, in which to look forward to having major societal impact as well as maybe having good impact at home. We at the Department of Energy, I can assure you, will do all that we can to help support you in that adventure. Thank you. Scott, we have, all right. I was told we have questions.
I have two quick questions.
Where are you?
To your right.
Okay.
You speak to the desire to become energy independent. If that's the case, then why, according to current U.S. Census data, are we exporting, do petroleum, energy, and other tangential industries make up about 15% of our exports, the second highest by category?
I'm sorry, so just to clarify, the question is on energy independence?
If we are trying to establish energy independence, why are we exporting so much energy products?
Okay, so first of all, for background, I want to emphasize that we are net importers of oil and oil products. We don't import hardly anything else in terms of the energy space, so that's the space. We have, you are correct, that we have become major net exporters of petroleum products, right? The end, I think, my view, first of all, with, quotes, energy independence, the issue really is about net exports, imports, because that is responding to a market-driven issue. And we should remember that oil specifically, so again, I'm not talking about natural gas at the moment or other commodities, but oil specifically is the case where we do have essentially a global market and a global pricing. So I think we're not going to be immune from that, just as other countries in the past who were net exporters, they were not immune either to global price movements. But still, fundamentally, bottom line is we are net importers still of oil and oil products.
Thank you. The second question is in regards to subsidies by industry and company. Is there anything about sunlighting the money that we give out per industry, per company, and what it's used for, and what the process is for possibly redirecting funds towards growing industries instead of established ones?
Well, as you probably know, I mean, that is a very active discussion. The president has called for, certainly the kind of shift that you're talking about. Congress is looking at tax reform, but right now the focus is frankly much narrower in terms of tax extenders. So that would be very, very critical for things like the renewables tax credits, and certainly Senator Wyden, who is chairing the Senate Finance Committee, is hoping to move that kind of legislation. We, as you all know, laws pass when the House and the Senate agree, and the President agrees. So we'll see how that goes. But number one item on the agenda relevant to the energy sector right now is the near-term issue: is can tax extenders get put in place, and then will come the question of whether or not comprehensive tax reform can be handled.
Hi, my name is Alyssa. I'm from Denton, Texas, and you may not have heard that in November we're voting on a banning hydraulic fracturing in our city. I was curious to know if you think that your really good idea of diversifying our energy in all sorts of ways can mesh up with the integrity of our cities that don't want market advances.
So, well, on the issue of hydraulic fracturing, first of all, let me say that, well, first of all, it's obviously a fact that it has produced an enormous increase in production of gas and oil, especially light oil. That's a fact, and with certainly the economic impacts that I described earlier. Now, clearly we have to keep working on reducing the environmental footprint. There's some progress. There's a ways to go. Methane emissions are down. More states are, I think, moving to better regulate well completion, surface water, more recycling of water, more conversion of diesel engines to natural gas engines, which helps local air quality. So there is progress. We will continue to keep pushing in terms of trying to minimize the footprint. But it's also the case, and this gets, I think, to the question of local issues, and which I think different cities, different states will take different approaches, clearly. But what is the case is, fundamentally, it is a large industrial activity, and you can't kind of make that go away. What you can do is try to minimize the footprint, and then decisions clearly are taken at various political levels in different parts of the country.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Moniz, my name is Scott Johnson. Regarding the grants that you give to businesses, do you look at the project in a comprehensive way to try to make sure that the build-out and the hiring and the laws and rules that govern that project from a federal level or state level are done in accordance, such as trying to incentivize local hiring, trying to look at zero waste plants, et cetera, with that grant funding as a provision of the grant?
Well, first of all, I should say that there are many different instruments. I think you may be using the word grant in a broad sense, as opposed to its technical meaning of grant versus contract versus loan, et cetera. So across that spectrum, the conditions attached will vary. If I talk about, let's say, in the loan program, for example, the questions of zero waste for example. Actually, it's in a grant as well. I can think of a project on a grant as well. No, I'm sorry, a contract and a loan, in which that would be viewed as an important part of satisfying the pushing technology criterion. So almost certainly that would be viewed as a criterion for decisions on the award. With regard to labor issues, et cetera, I think that's, to be honest, a bit more variable, but it does certainly come into play. For example, I don't want to get into proprietary stuff, but for example, in one of our loans for a very, very major project, it was significant that even though it was not a state law, that in that case union labor was being used in the project. But the main criteria typically will tend to be on the technology innovation side.
Hi, my name is Park Smith, and I'm with American Youth Works here in Austin. We run a Green Jobs Training Center for young adults. I was recently in D.C. and met with some of your staff there around an issue that is being pushed through the Department of Interior, Department of Ag, called the 21st Century Conservation Service Corps Initiative to engage young workers in the new economies and the green economy. And it was really great to hear you talking about are we producing the workers that we need for these industries? And as I look around the room, I'm looking for more diversity in this field, and knowing that the Service and Conservation Corps industry is a way to get more folks coming into this. And I wonder if in this massive investments that the Department of Energy is doing, which really excited to hear, is there room for sort of this bringing up the next workforce? You mentioned the VETS initiative, and now that we know we have a ton of young people out of work, but looking for those opportunities to enter the sector. If there's anything Department of Energy is doing really specifically towards that population or that initiative. Thanks.
Well, yes, we probably could do more, and I'm certainly open to ideas. But again, we are looking at this across a very, very broad spectrum in terms of needs. For example, at what you might call the high end of the educational spectrum, like graduate students and PhD students, we have established, well, technically we have to wait for the Congress to approve FY15 budgets, but we will have funding to establish what are called traineeship programs, where we will take areas of specific need to the energy and Department of Energy sectors, and through competition, have at some universities programs that are very much geared to training in that area and to curriculum development, power electronics, actinide chemistry, things of this type. But then in this spectrum, as I mentioned, community colleges and tribal colleges are a place that we want to give much more attention to. We do have some, I mentioned the one in Tennessee, I did not mention, but there are others, Denver, et cetera. But I think systematically we might be able to do more, and we'd be very, very interested. I should say, out at Austin Community College, just now coming in, I saw a fantastic facility for focusing on particularly mathematics education using IT fundamentally, and that came from that facility largely came from a grant from the Department of Labor, and we are and will work more closely with the Department of Labor exactly on those training programs. But if you know some of my staff apparently, if you have some specific ideas, please shoot them in. Thank you.
Due to the Secretary's time, that's the last question we'll have for tonight. How about a round of applause?
Thank you. Thank you.